Hi, Ian.
Hi, Dania.
Welcome to Next Podcast Media. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
I think the first thing to start off with is to introduce you to our audience. You're, of course, in the advertising industry, a lot of people know you, but for everybody else, give us a little introduction about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. And thanks for spending the time with me. Hopefully
Absolutely.
This is going to be quite fun.
Yeah.
So I'm Ian Manning. I'm the Executive Director for the IAB MENA, which is an industry body focused on the growth or supporting the growth of the digital advertising industry across the whole MENA region.
Yeah.
So we're a body that's made up of just under 80 members now, so company members. And we do a lot of projects around helping people understand where advertising is going. We help them around doing educational work and tackling some of the bigger, more strategic topics that are hard to do as an individual company.
Yeah.
But obviously you need to have some sort of catalyst or mechanism where companies can come together to tackle those topics. So that's what we do.
Amazing. So how long have you been doing this? Have you been part of IAB?
So actually I joined in the very beginning for this region. We only kicked off in about 2019. We finally got our license. So I've been involved since 2018 actually, along with some of the other industry leaders, where we felt there was a need to create a body, a mechanism for us to collaborate on some of these topics. So I've been involved right from the very beginning, actually.
And I think a lot of, from the beginning as well, a lot of that was because of COVID, everything was quite virtual. And then you started doing your in-person events, and then it kind of grew from there onwards.
Yeah, you could say we probably chose the worst possible time to launch. But it had been a long time coming. You know, people had been working on trying to get it off the ground for many years before I was involved even. And we were fortunate to get to a point where we were ready to launch in 2019, 2020. We had one board meeting before COVID's lockdown started. So there was a good year or so of, let's say, internal introspection, which actually was quite useful because we were able to take a step back and go, look, we can't do events. It's hard to collaborate. You know, people are struggling with restructures in their companies and in their own lives. What do we need to put in place to make this, you know, a robust and long-term strategic offering for the marketplace? So in some ways it actually helped us, but certainly didn't feel like it at the time. But yes, I think since the sort of opening up, shall we say, 2022, 2023, we've been a lot more active in the market. We've got a lot more task forces looking at lots of different topics, a lot more events, lots more opportunities for people to engage, etc. So it's really ramped up in the last 2 years.
It has, it has. And I've been to some of your events. It's been amazing. Last week you had a well-being, I think it was a anxiety and well-being event. Correct. That was really great.
Yeah. So actually that's an interesting one because the temptation for an industry body focused on ad spend and digital is to focus on all the technical aspects, which we do. But what we very quickly learned was that there's no technical solution without people behind it. And people are feeling the pain, they're feeling the stress.
Burnout.
Sometimes they're feeling a bit burnt out. Sometimes they're feeling a bit alone. And we felt that actually we've got a unique opportunity to bring people together to at least acknowledge that and hopefully to help solve it in some ways or to help them find ways to solve it for themselves.
Or even just connect you with the right people in that industry to be a little bit more open and talk about that. It's really important. So that was a really great event.
Yes, we bring in experts, as you know, because you were there. So we don't pretend to be experts in well-being.
No, I was there. It was great.
We do actually bring in experts who know what they're doing and just get people to stop and take notes. And so those are really successful events. We make them casual. They're quite small usually, so people feel open and able to share. Yeah, which is quite fun actually.
You mentioned at the beginning about members. You have 18 members. Can you just, for those of you who don't know about the members or the membership, just tell us a little bit more about that? What kind of members do you have, and what is the membership to be part of the IAB? Yeah,
we've got really it's anybody who's got an interest in growing the digital advertising economy in MENA. So that's everything from ad agencies, and a large portion of our members are the big agencies and more smaller and medium-sized agencies, the likes of the ad tech space, whether that be CTV companies or DSPs or SSPs in some cases, Next Broadcast Media as an example.
Yes, we are part of them.
Absolutely. And then, of course, the publishers themselves. So many publishers will take part as well. And I think that's what makes it a strong organization, is that we have a mix of the buy side, the facilitator, if we can call the tech agencies that, and actually the publisher, the end sort of sales side. And we work together, we collaborate, we look at small projects, we look at big projects, but it's very much driven by what we think we can do as a collective that we can't do as individual companies. So that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, and in terms of like memberships, how can like anyone can join as long as they're part of the advertising industry, like smaller startups, just upcoming agencies, the boutique agencies?
Yeah, our membership is corporate, so you join at a company level, and then all the staff within that company have access to our task forces, which produce work. They have access to our events, where obviously you can network or take part. And obviously they have access to any of the reports or resources that we create. We're quite open about who can join, providing they are have an interest in the digital economy in MENA. So that's not to say they have to be based in MENA, by the way. We have a number of companies that have offices outside of MENA, whether that be in Europe or elsewhere, who are developing operations within the region or serving clients within the region. And they also can join and contribute and benefit.
Yeah. And on the task force side of things, can you tell us a little bit more about that? What is this task force, so that our viewers can be a little bit more aware of it, and if they want to join a task force, you can tell them a bit more about that.
I love the task forces. They're my favourite part, actually. It's the hardest part to do, I think, but it's also my favourite part.
And there is actually an audio task force as well, right?
There is an audio task force, which we can touch on in a minute. But the idea of the task forces is we bring together people behind a specific area. So let's take CTV. We'll come to audio in a moment, don't worry. Let's take CTV. And we bring together anyone who has an interest in the CTV market. So that would be the agencies, the tech companies, and the publishers, as we spoke about.
They don't have to necessarily have a CTV solution. It's just their interest in CTV.
Absolutely,
Okay.
and that's quite an important point. Usually they do have some vested interest for being involved, but we open it to everyone. Anyone who's a member can take part. We meet usually every second week. And we've learned along the way to be quite output-led. So we very quickly decide what is the thing that we're going to produce that'll make the industry better. And that could be an event, it could be a white paper, it could be a piece of research,
thought leadership.
It could be some video, or it could be a podcast.
Yeah.
It could be any of these kind of things, but we agree the output really quickly in order that people have something to work towards. And then we collaborate in the delivery of that. So
and how is that funded? So is it part of the IAB
it's funded out of the membership fees. So
Okay.
the members pay an annual fee, and we allocate that fee towards development of the industry.
So each task force would have like a specific budget?
It's probably not that rigid, if I'm brutally honest. It's a little bit more flexible as to what do we think is important.
Yeah.
And what we find is that different task forces ebb and flow in terms of people's engagement and involvement, depending on what's happening within the industry. So a good example is the audio task force, which we kicked off some time back. And what was interesting about the audio task force is it actually wasn't one of our original task forces.
Okay.
It was requested by the members.
Oh.
And so what that showed us is that there was interest in learning more around not only podcasting, but also streaming and other audio opportunities in the region. And so it's quite a small task force at the moment, but it's quite a powerful task force given the people that are involved in it. And they work together. We actually don't meet every second week in that particular case, but we have done some projects together to try and advance audio in particular, but podcasting and streaming in the consciousness of the wider industry, because it is one of the smaller channels. So that's kind of how the task forces work and how they deliver. Each one is very much focused on what that community feels is important to focus on. So we're quite member-led in that sense. And as a result, you learn so much, and it's quite exciting, actually. Each one is different. Each one's delivering something else to the industry.
And are you involved in a lot of the task forces or the conversations that go on between each of the task forces and each of the members? How involved are you with those?
Yeah, so I I try and take let's say a viewer standpoint in the task forces. I do attend 90% of them, 99% of them, whatever it is. But I try and let the experts lead, so the members take a leadership position within that. And my role is to, I won't say police it, that's the wrong word, but kind of, sometimes it is the right word, but to make sure that everyone's voice is heard, to make sure that it's neutral in the output at the end of the day, and that it's in the best interests of the market. And what we found over time is that in the beginning, years back now, people struggled a little bit with that because they were talking with their competitors or with potentially people that they wanted to hire or be hired by. Mm-hmm. And we've noticed over time that's changed. People are much more open to what's right for the industry and how can I contribute and how can I learn. So we've seen a big shift actually, which is really positive.
That's really good, yeah. In terms of going back to the advertising ecosystem here and just focusing more on MENA, what do you see is trending right now? What is the ecosystem is heading towards?
Look, the big talk is all about AI, obviously, and I think that is going to be a game changer. I think there's probably more urgent or more immediate things that people need to look at. I think a lot of the data we have within the market is not easily accessible or is not transparent. That will affect the effectiveness of AI generally, I think, but more importantly, it reduces trust in the industry. So I think we probably need to focus on building trust through transparent data, smart measurement, open measurement. I think there's an opportunity around some of the new channels, CTV, audio, out of home, to really start demonstrating their abilities to be effective advertising media, which they are. I think in this market we've seen quite a concentration towards, dare I say it, the traditional players, and by that I mean the social. Depends how far back you go, I guess, but at the moment I think they are the traditional players, social and video in particular. It's not a bad thing, but I do think we're starting to see a diversification to some of the other opportunities that are available to advertisers as people understand more about them, as measurement gets better and as data becomes available. So I think we'll see a shift there. How AI affects each individual person's job, I don't know. I don't profess to be an expert in that space. It's going to, it has already, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that's probably going to be the biggest change in the future.
I mean, if you're not using AI, then what are you doing, right? Do you use AI yourself?
I do. I mean, I think also there's partially a kind of an excitement about the game-changing nature of it, but actually in advertising it's been, let's call it machine learning, it's been available for a long time already. Yeah. It's how programmatic works.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say that's basically programmatic.
Has always worked. So whether that's what people mean by AI today or not, I don't know, but it is AI, effectively. Yeah. And so actually I think there's already an understanding of how it can impact upon a market, which it did. Both programmatic and social did that already. And it'll just expand now even more rapidly within our space. And I think the industry is sort of already geared towards that. So I think that could be really interesting. I think it might affect publishers in terms of the content piece, which maybe hasn't been as commonly used in the past. It was more around the planning piece, I think. And that could be quite interesting. The sort of notion of personal publishing becomes quite interesting, I think. I haven't kind of got to my expert usage of it in that way yet, but I'm sure I will. I'm sure other people have. But yeah, I think it will affect things going forward.
And when we look at, let's say, the MENA region, what are you finding? What are you seeing? Like feedback from the members that you're involved with, what are the biggest challenges that they're facing in the MENA region when it comes to advertising and digital advertising in particular?
Wow, where do you start? I think it's tempting to jump to the macroeconomic, macro-social piece. Mm-hmm. I think everyone knows that it's a difficult region. It's a fragmented region. It's got macro challenges. I think that's obvious. And I think it's easy to kind of go, well, that makes it unique. But actually, I'm not sure that's 100% the case. I think what we've seen is, yes, these things do happen. Yes, there are flare-ups in certain places that change spend patterns or change what needs to happen from an advertising point of view. but they're actually short term from an advertising point of view. I just want to
Yes.
make it very clear. I'm only talking about advertising.
Yes, we're only
from
talking
a social point of view,
advertising.
a whole different story. But from an advertising point of view, there's a short term effects, and the market is naturally progressive enough that it's flexible already. It's already got this built into its DNA, and we see people shift money as and when they need to relatively easily, actually. So I think the macro effect is probably a smaller long-term picture. I think the bigger piece is around I mentioned it earlier, around data in particular, the quality of the data available to both planners and buyers, the interaction between the end point, the publisher, and the buyer, which is the advertiser, and the chain between them. We all know that there's fragmentation of that budget along the way, and what starts out as $100 in the beginning is not $100 at the end.
Yeah.
And so some of that is legitimate, some of it's not. So sort of filtering through some of that sort of ad fraud piece or unnecessary spend in the middle on unnecessary tech, I think is a big challenge. It's a global challenge, but I think it's particularly prevalent in this market. So I think there are a couple of big challenges around that. I think for publishers in particular, I think it's hard. You're spending a lot of money producing content, but it's more difficult to distribute that
monetize,
content and to monetize that content. Again, I think that's a global
Why do you think
phenomenon,
that
but
is?
it's particularly difficult here, I think.
Why do you think that for publishers it's much more
The
difficult
big
to...
distribution mechanisms are the big global players, and so they're agnostic. They just distribute. And the cost of producing local content is more than the cost of producing global content. It's as simple as that. It's basic maths. So I think that's the challenge.
Well, thank you so much, Ian, for your insights and sharing all your thoughts with us today. Really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you for being here at Next Podcast Media.
Well, thank you very much.
It was lovely speaking to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I'll see you around for sure in the next event.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Diane.